Welcome back to the Chasing Common Ground podcast. And today I have the joy and the privilege to bring back Jeb Stuart Johnston. And I think the last time you were on the show was probably at least like 2 or 3 years ago, because like Dean and I just recorded last week. And it was 2 years since him and I recorded. I'm like, shit, if it's 2 years since him and I have
Seriously?
recorded, time flies. So, Jeb, how are you doing today?
Good. That's wild. That's
Yeah.
wild. Good. So yeah, like talk about time flying. It's like my little Facebook memory came up, and it was like you've known Dean for 7 years or whatever, and I'm like, man, I was like, it's like, I mean, I'm 47 years old, so obviously there's a lot of time there, but it's like you think about like Dean, obviously a very very close friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world, but he's also one of my newer friends, and it feels like oh I've probably only known him for a few years or whatever, and then you're like, actually no, I mean his daughter's what she's 4, something like that. I'm terrible with kids' ages. I have no idea. As
Mhm.
someone who doesn't have kids, you understand. They look the same until they're like 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like time flies, and I guess because like the weirdness of like social media or even like seeing each other at events and stuff is like you see each other, so you're like, oh, well, okay, whatever. Probably did this podcast 6 months ago. When was that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy with like references of time and stuff because even as we were getting started to record, I was thinking about the last time we were on a podcast together, and then I was like, well, I've seen you in person like twice since then, which is cool because of the Real Coaches Summit.
Yep.
Um, and it's just like we lose touch of how much time passes. Like Dean and I worked together at a gym, but now it's getting closer and closer to a decade ago.
That's
Um,
crazy. Because when did
yeah,
we met at Kansas City?
in 2019.
Yeah, so that's 6 years.
Yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
It's cool. Like the thing that I really like is the fact that so many people have at very least stayed in contact with each other. Because I know some people have kind of drifted out of the industry or kind of diversified what they do. And at the very best, we're still helping people with their life or with their just things that make life more enjoyable. And I think that's kind of the direction that I want to take this podcast is sort of like partly talking about different experiences that have kind of made you who you are, and partly on things that you have felt are more significant around life. Because what I am realizing is that's a huge differentiating factor in people's connections and like in the qualities that people bring to like a connection. Where when people have experienced a whole bunch of like crazy things in life, they often have like really good personality traits and qualities to help others or to show compassion to others. And we kind of start to uncover that as we get to know a person. So this episode will be about kind of getting to know the things about you that many people in our world might not know about you.
Well, there's a laundry list. I don't even know where to, like, it's so hard because I think one of the strange things, Mark Fisher, not the fitness pro, but the philosopher, talks about how nostalgia is like poisonous, right? Because we create a mythology around the past that is not true, and I kind of always think about that, like in anything is like that hindsight is we kind of create this narrative after the fact of what the past is and all these things and so when I look at it and people are like, oh, what are these, what are the things that kind of like define, it's like, it's such a conglomeration of just everything that's happened. And in some ways, I'm still the same person I was, 40 years ago. And in some ways I'm completely different. And it's just, we talk about time, we want to get, we want to get like the real side of me that people don't see or my friends see is just the weird side. And, I have, I look at time kind of as a construct in that us as human beings only have the ability to see time linearly. When we think about like the theory of relativity, the idea is that time is all relative. And I always think about it in the concept of when I was in high school, reading Slaughterhouse-Five, and there's a scene in that, and Vonnegut describes the character because he kind of time travels. That's the character. What happens, but he says humanity is basically like it's like you're on a train car and you have a periscope, and all you can see is out of that periscope, and that's that little bit of thing. But technically, you're running through this entire vast country that all the stuff is around you, but all you're seeing is this little bit in front of you. And so I just conceptually, I just think about time as this like. Constant, but this ever long change, but all these things are happening at once, even though they're happening in our brains as linear. And so when we talk about time, I always think about how do we view it, how do we slow it, how do we change it? Maybe not from a physical standpoint, but from a almost like kind of psychological, spiritual standpoint. And this is kind of part and parcel to like things that are important to me. This is a concept that one of my best friends for 20 something years now. He's an artist named Lance Routson who lives in Pennsylvania now, but he used to live in New York. And he went back to school and got his master's in art. But it's he delves a lot into in his work. He does a lot of multimedia, but he kind of delved into this idea of how art as an educational tool relates kind of in this postmodernist philosophical thought process. And so him and I have had this really long ongoing conversation on time, and we do this letter writing campaign. So we handwrite each other letters and send them, and that whole concept of time. It's interesting because he's this. We were close friends when I was a musician. He was an artist. Things kind of drifted a little bit when I got into fitness, and it was just like I just kind of started getting very into this one thing that seemed so different, and now it's come full circle because his approach in his philosophies mirrors a lot of what I'm doing. He starts talking about like time and like this flow state, and I'm like, oh wow, that's funny because I do all this work in like polyvagal theory, which is all about how can you find the optimal state of flow, and so we're talking about the same things from these like totally different lenses. And it just it kind of helps me to think about this fitness thing or anything like that. I don't think about it in terms of coming at it from a fitness standpoint or anything like that. Like I really want to think about all of this stuff as life. I don't like to get too myopic and drawn into it. So when you ask about like what life experiences shaped you, it's really like the totality of the relationships I've had and the places I've been and the shit I've been through. I had a very bad alcohol problem and drug problem for, first, probably the first rehab or first detox I went to, I was 18, and I haven't drank alcohol in like 8 or 9 years. I don't know, because I stopped doing the date thing because I had fucked up so many times in my life that I was finally like, you know what? Just today I'm not going to drink. That's it. And so those, what we would call trauma and joy and in relationships and pain and all of those things, I think encapsulate who we are as people. And so who I am today is really just kind of a collection of all of those little pieces along the way.
I mean, that's a lot to work with, and one of the first things.
Also, anyone who knows me, this is what you get. I'm not someone who's like, so how's the weather? Like, I dive right into this kind of
Yeah,
shit.
no, this is great. This is exactly why you're on the show. One of the first things that stood out to me and sort of along with some of the things that I know about you is like, from what I know about you, you are very good at like kind of like taking control of life and making like decisions to connect with people and to go do things and to make things happen. Like you travel great lengths to get additions to your tattoo, and you're not hesitant to go to conferences if there's people that you specifically want to connect with and stuff like that. And like even just like with your living environment, you've changed that up a few times throughout the time that we've been connected. What I'm curious about is when you're kind of making decisions as to how you are going to sort of like slow time or control time or look more closely at time, what is sort of like, what's your rubric for making those decisions? Like, what things are you considering? What things are you looking at? What things are you thinking about?
I mean, it's been a big shift in my life. Now, my main focus in life is really just relationships. It's really about giving back. Um, it's funny because you said you're like, oh, you're like really about like controlling and like going and making sure to do these things. Like, it's funny because if people see me at a conference and like, I'm always like talking to everybody. I'm like, that has been very intentional. I especially after I quit drinking. When I was drinking, like that part of why I drank is because I am naturally very introverted. Like I'll go out and I'll talk to people, but in close relationships, close talking, awesome. I love going to these conferences. I get sick almost every time after I come home. I'm like in bed for days. Like I am wiped. I'm just crushed. And I used to have terrible when I quit drinking and I didn't have that social lubricant anymore. I had terrible social anxiety to the point where if I had to go out somewhere, I would like throw up, and I would have my OCD. Like, I got into like I had like these really nervous tics where I would have to count like I would move my fingers down, up, down, up, down, down, up, and then I would have to do that again. I would do these weird breathing things, and I got this weird nose twitch, which I was a bartender when I quit drinking, so I get this weird nose thing, which of course everyone's like, oh, this guy's obviously coked out of his mind. I was stone sober, and so that going to these conferences was very intentional. The first seminar I went to was when I met Andrew Coates, our mutual friend, and that was in Kansas City, and that was like probably one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. I didn't know anybody. I had this like business coach at the time, who was like, go to this conference, you meet a bunch of people, and he was business coaching a lot of other people who I ended up working with at Stronger You. A lot of people that in that crowd was people like Jordan Pigel, Nick. What's Nick's last name? God, it's driving me crazy. So it was a lot of these people that were kind of in this like marketing circle that I met, and then those are people that I met there. But I kind of went without knowing anyone, and the moment I got there, it was like, how am I going to make this work? And I was like, I knew I was in Kansas City, I knew I wanted barbecue, so I was like, hey, does anyone want to go get barbecue? And a few people were like, yeah. And this one lady's from there, and she's like, well, I was like, this is the place I want to go. She's like, well, there's two locations. The one is like kind of in a bad part of town. I wouldn't go there. Go to the suburban one. I was like, you clearly don't know shit about barbecue. You don't ever go to barbecue. Like, you always go to a barbecue place in the hood. Like, that's where the good barbecue is. So a couple people came with me, and I made some friends there. I meet this giant redheaded Viking guy who's drinking scotch, and him and I totally hit it off, and that's Andrew, and we've been close friends ever since. And I also met like Spencer Nadolsky there, the infamous Mark Shields. For anyone who doesn't know him, you're lucky. No, he's like the biggest troll on the internet, but great dude. I just met so many people there, and at the time, my connection with the industry was from a different side. I was kind of connected through the publishing side. My best friend at the time and training partner was the editor at Muscle and Fitness and Men's Fitness. And so I was kind of connected to this like different side where it was like, our training programs, like we would call John Meadows or Joe DeFranco or Jim Smith, Smitty from Diesel Crew. Like those are the guys who were like would do our programming for us, just like on a phone call. Ben Bruno was the guy who, at dinner told me that I should just get a training certificate and start. So I had all these really great connections. But I was super afraid to go be around people. And so I intentionally made myself go to these things, meet more people, become more comfortable. And now I go and why do I choose to go to certain conferences? It usually has nothing to do with the speakers or the content or anything. It's just, where are my friends going to be? Where are the people that I want to connect with going to be? Because as you know, we live this like online life. And so I might only get to see the people that I count as like my closest friends. I might only get to see them like once a year. And Dean, I haven't seen Dean now in like a couple years when I came up to Edmonton, and it's like and it's like that's like this year. Like I don't know. Like probably one of my trips is going to be like, hey, when you go to next time he goes down to visit his parents in like Phoenix or whatever, I'm like maybe go out there or something because like I got to. And now he's got another kid. I was like I got to see the baby. Mm-hmm. So my intentions now is really just relationships. growing up, and I guess I'll expand on why that's so important to me. Growing up, as you notice, I've moved a few times since you've known me. I mean, I'd never have lived. This house I'm in now is the longest I've ever lived in any house in my life, and we moved here in November of 2020. So that's it'll be almost five. God, it's gonna be 5 years. Oh wow. So I'd never lived in any house longer than I think 3 years in my entire life. 47 years old. So growing up, I moved all the time. So I never invested in relationships because I saw everything as so transactional. I was like, okay, this is gonna be my friend for a couple years, and then I'm never gonna speak to him again. And that I think that contributed a lot to why I, fell into alcohol and drug because really what addiction to me is just a lack of connection, and it kind of creates this vicious circle that you feel disconnected, so you find something and it helps you to socially lubricate, and then all of a sudden that thing further disconnects you from others. It further disconnects you from yourself, from spiritually, if you're a religious person, from God or whatever, and so that has become really the only thing that matters to me anymore. And like work is about relationships to me. I call what I do a practice. I was thinking about this earlier. I hate. I mean, yes, I guess it's a business, but there's something about that I just can't come to terms with. I don't like the idea of that, because yes, I need to make money. Yes, I need to earn a living, but it's if I didn't have to charge for what I do, I would do it. I do what I do for free in certain capacities. I do what I do for less money per month than I charge an hour for some people because I want to work with them and I know that they can't afford it. It's the only way I can be on social media, to be honest, is I think about that as my like pro bono work. What can I give people for free? And it's not this like, everyone's like, oh, I want to help people and yes, I do, but I also feel a responsibility, a duty. I was talking on a podcast the other day. I was like, I always laugh because it's like the most poignant line that sticks with me from any movie is like John Wick, and I kind of run my life by that. I was like, I'm here to serve and to be of service, right? Like don't ask me why that movie. I mean, I watch that movie like every time it comes on because all of them are awesome. But
Yeah.
it's such a great thing to like. If I live my life in service of others, I am a happy person. I'm a content person, and so that's kind of where I'm at. And it's like, why do I do the things? It's like, have they helped my career? Sure, but I think people think like, oh, if I know this person, or oh, if this person shares my stuff, I'm gonna be. It's like that's not how it works. Like I would love to tell you that's the truth, but as you know, I know people with hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers that don't really make a very good living because they've spent all this time getting really good at being on Instagram and didn't really. That's not the product that they're selling isn't what they're good at, which so it's this weird and that's a big problem with fitness, but that's been talked about to death. So, but yeah, so again, once again, anyone who's listening, you will learn that I talk way too much and say way too many things. So I hope I answered that question somewhat.
Yeah, it was good. It gave me lots to work with because I have a similar sentiment with like sort of like nurturing the connections, really just caring about the connections above all else. I mean, recently Kyle and Matt opened up their gym in St. Louis,
Yeah, that's
and I
that's
went and I
another trip
checked
that
it
I
out.
have to make. Yeah, yeah, you went
Yeah,
down for the opening.
yeah. I was like, this might be ridiculous. 2 planes to get there. It actually took me 3 planes to get back home, but I was like, shit, like this could legitimately be one of my only chances to see their gym, and why not see it when they're first like getting things started out? Because like time goes by so fast. Like I do hope to see them both again many times throughout my life, but how many times am I going to go all the way to where they're based, kind of thing? But
Well, to your point
like,
about that event, the reason I didn't go is because I was like, you guys are gonna be too busy. And honestly, if I go, I don't. I just want to hang out with you guys. Like, I don't want to like. So, and also a funny aside, I consider Matt Domney to be one of my close friends. We've never met in person ever.
it's wild. It probably feels like you have, right?
Oh well,
Like,
so like at Real Coaches, like Zach Pello, I was like, oh man, good to see you. He's like, we've never met. I was like, really? Like, how is that possible? Like, I feel like I know you so well. Like, we've never met. And it was like, that's wild. There is a good side to the internet. I mean, there's a lot of bad, but there
mhm.
is that. And so, Yeah, and again, to your your point is like you definitely embrace that same idea. You give a lot. When I spoke at Real Coaches Summit, I think that night I get to my hotel room and I've got an email with a full folder from you of the video you did, edits, like all these like captions, and like I was like, first of all, it was awesome. I mean, just from a technical standpoint, it was awesome. But also, like, I was like that's just a really kind thing to do, like for no benefit to you, just because we're friends. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, not many people do shit like that.
No, I mean like that's something that's always been important to me, and it's sort of it's been probably the secret to why I've gotten to where I've gotten in my own career is because I really do care about my people.
Yeah.
And I'll like go to war for certain people. Like I will, and I realize like sometimes, especially in the creative space with the creative work that I do, uh, the first iteration isn't good enough, and that's okay. You will have to refine it. You will have to do it better, and even though it takes more work, it's okay because once you put in that work, that person sees you put in that work, then after that it'll get easier kind of thing. Like for example, if I'm trying to do like a cover image for somebody or a
Mm-hmm.
thumbnail graphic and they're like, I don't like this. Well, you have to come to terms with that and then you have to do another iteration. They might not like that either. And I've had some instances where I'll do like 8 iterations and I don't like any of them. And sometimes I'm out for my time, I'm out for my costs, and that's just what it is. But because I've gone through that, it makes me that much better for the next time because then the next time I do it, I'll be like, okay, I want you to send me like 10 samples of like what you think a good graphic is. Like show me some of the ones that catch your eye. And I'll base this off of yours. And then like if you want text on there, tell me what kind of text. Do you want like long phrasing? Do you want a short hook? What do you want? And then because of that, it kind of helps me systematize things and gets me a bit further. But a person who doesn't know me would think, oh, he just did it once, got lucky. I could just do it once, get lucky. But that's just not how it works. And the same sentiment can be true for our coaching with our people, like all of the different conversations that we have based on an experience we might have had with somebody else where it kind of went sour or where it didn't like land properly and we had to kind of learn from that. And it's like, if I could have done this again, how would you have liked me to do it differently? And they're like, oh, well, I really like it when you kind of like take more time to listen and don't talk as much. And it's okay. And then you go into a
That
fresh new
that that that
interaction.
felt very personal there, Chris.
No, 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 no. No, that's not even it. If anything, it's me to me. Like the number of times that I have learned that despite the fact I can be a very passionate person, I'm good at yapping when it's like a one-on-one conversation. Sometimes I'm more effective when I just listen and then I just ask if there's anything else that they would like to share, or if I ask for more context, like even just like learning from different friends as to like why the things are important to them, like learning about different languages and different cultures and different customs and stuff. And rather than sharing like my stuff and how my stuff relates to their stuff, I can kind of learn why their stuff is significant. And then maybe practice some of their stuff. Like if it's a different language, like I've been trying Danish on Duolingo because I have some heritage from
Are you
Denmark.
kidding me? So my wife works for a Dutch company. Like that is first of all, I love the Dutch people. I love Amsterdam. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I would move there tomorrow if they didn't have like 6 months of cold or 8 months of cold rain all the time and dark. But first of all, hideous language and so hard. Like that you chose like next to like Chinese. I think you might have chosen the hardest language to learn.
Well, there's a funny distinction here. So you're talking about Dutch and I'm talking about Danish. They're both
Oh,
difficult
I'm
languages.
sorry, Danish. My wife. I'm sorry. She used to work for a Danish company. Danish actually isn't too bad. It's not nearly as ugly as Dutch.
Yeah, but we're all good. It's like I've also there's been so many different languages I've been trying to learn. Like because you can just choose all kinds on Duolingo.
Yeah.
So I also chose Hindi, trying to learn a little bit of that, and it's
Wow.
just like that. Like I haven't gotten past A yet. There's so
Because
many
there's
different
not even
languages.
any like Germanic or Latin roots there. Like, you don't have anything to like jump into.
Yeah, it's a whole uncharted territory, and just like trying to wrap my head around it. But then I've got such a diverse selection of friends and people in my life where
Yeah.
it's like some of them know 6 languages and they don't complain. So I'm like, well, maybe I should apply myself a little harder and like
That's the
learn a
difference
little
between
bit more.
Canadians and Americans because we would just say we speak American. Everyone should speak American. I don't want to do it. It's funny you say that about listening because I obviously on podcasts I'm always yapping and with my friends I don't shut the fuck up, but like on with clients like I just listen and my mentor Lisa Lewis like that's one of the things that she taught me early on is she keeps a post-it note on her computer for calls and it just says wait, why am I talking? And I think that's such a good for coaches. It's such a good lesson, but it's also we coming back to this relationships and how to be better at going to things like again with my social anxiety, going to these conferences was always really hard, and I always kind of look to people that are really really good in those situations. There's a few people that come to mind in the fitness industry in particular that are great at it. Don Saladino, who I've known for a long long time, he's a New York guy. Um, uh, Jordan Shallow, so good at it, and then my buddy Sean Pastuch, who I've met in the last few years. And one thing that they all have in common is they just ask a ton of questions. And what's brilliant about that is, especially if you're someone like me who's a little bit introverted, um, you get out of having to talk. You ask them questions, and then one of the interesting things about when you do that to people is they'll leave and they'll be like, "Man, that guy Jeb, what a great guy!" Like, da, da, da. And they're like, "Oh, what's he do?" And he'll be like, "Actually, I have no idea. He didn't really tell me anything about himself. He just," and you're like, "Yeah, I got this person to talk about themselves for 20 minutes. They're thrilled, and it works really well." And there was a great book that came out recently. I forget. I think it was the guy that wrote or not Atomic Habits that wrote uh, Tiny Habits or one of those. But he wrote a book on asking better questions. And it was like, as you ask people questions, like if someone's like, yeah, my son's graduating, and you'd be like, oh, cool. Like instead of like being like, oh, yeah, I know someone that graduated high school or whatever, be like, wow, so your last kid is leaving high school. What does that feel like to go from having like a house with kids for 20 years to now having an empty household? That's got to be really interesting. And getting into those more in-depth questions, you learn more about people, but it really does ingratiate you well into a crowd that it helps, for that connection a lot.
Hmm. I mean, like, first and foremost, it's cool that I've had the experience to actually connect with those three people that you've kind of
Yeah.
outlined for the simple sake of me being able to attest to the fact that they are like they carry a different energy. Um,
And how do you feel when you're talking with one of them in person?
it oddly seen, I would say,
Right. You feel like
especially,
the most important person in the room. Don
yeah.
Saladino, he trains celebrities. He could be sitting there next to Madonna, and he would make you feel like you are the person that's most important in that room because that his clients, and that is a gift.
Yeah.
That is a gift for both
Yeah.
people.
I mean, even to give some context, I got context for Don Saladino and Sean Pastuch. So with Don, I connected with him at the conference we had up here in Edmonton, and I was running sound. And some people, I don't know, some people thought I worked for the hotel or something, or some people thought I was just like some mute nerd or something. But Don Saladino, he actually like acted like I was a human being. And I was like, well, thank you, because I'm busting my butt over here.
Yeah.
And just like the energy that he carried, but then not only with me, but then as he was presenting, I noticed that he was able to, he had a unique way of connecting with each of the individuals who were watching him. And it was like,
Yeah.
I've been to enough conferences where I've seen how profoundly distinct that was. And it was really cool to see. And
And
then
this is
with,
and for people who don't have context, this is a guy whose social circle includes billionaires.
yeah,
Right? I mean, he one of his old clients was Michael Bloomberg. I mean, in he train. I mean, Ryan Reynolds. Like, I mean, the guy trains everybody. Like, he is around big shots. So when he makes us like tiny humans feel that way, it's incredible.
and with Sean Pastuch, the thing that stood out to me was showing up to Las Vegas, walking down the hallway, and he's just kind of like waiting to like say hi to everybody. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I recognized him from a social media clips, but aside from that, I didn't really know who he was. And like, he made eye contact with everybody, and his eyes were twinkling, and he was, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Good."
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
was like, "You
No,
don't know me, and you're asking me how's it going, and it's good."
yeah, same. I didn't, I'm not, I don't follow a lot of stuff on social media. So like half the best is like people are like, oh, have you heard like especially like influencers or anything? I'm like, I never know who anyone is. And Sean, because he's in the PT space, and I don't really do anything with training much anymore, so I don't really pay attention. And we met in Austin at Silverback, I think, and just, I mean, his wife was there. She was like probably 7 months pregnant. I mean, the two of them just fucking hysterical. Plus, they're from New York, so they've got that attitude. And like, and I was just like instantly, I was like, dude, I love this guy. I love this guy. But yeah, it's it's again these conferences, and Andrew and I always talk about it, and we've talked about it plenty of times. But there's a lot of like bullshit in this industry, and it's hard because you see all the stuff online. But I have found incredible friendships at these things, and I mean deep, 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 meaningful friendships that like some of these clicked like in a week. Like Jim Hallinan, Jimmy Nutrition. Like we met and it was like like we were like having hour and a half like phone. I don't talk on the phone to anybody. He calls me out of the blue. We're on the phone for like 2 hours. It's just like it's wild. But you only get these things if you put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable. Like it's uncomfortable, but like the reward is so huge.
Absolutely, which is a good segue for the next sort of like focus that I want to direct us towards. And I'll kind of frame it with some of my own personal experiences that I'm navigating right now.
Cool.
Because about a year ago, I was kind of looking at all the different things that I do because I've often worn many, many hats. And I'm like, okay, now to get to my next step. And for me, like the North Star is generally like being able to connect with more people. Last year, I was able to go to Denmark for a couple weeks. This year, it was going to Missouri, and I like being able to do that. I like to have at least one conference trip and one just for fun trip.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of places that I want to be able to go in a short amount of time. And so, as such, I need to make sure that my work is not only purposeful, but also is closest to my highest potential.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, over the last like 6 to 8 months, I've actually had to step away from certain like contracting roles that I've had in order to make space for new opportunities. Like I've been producing Andrew's podcast, and in order to do that, I stepped away from a lot of social media contracting that I did. And I've even also relocated gyms as of like this week. I haven't actually announced it officially, but I
That's
used
big.
to be contracting out of the same space as Andrew, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
shift over to a different space with another friend, and we'll actually be able to collaborate in the gym space quite a bit, which it doesn't really like negatively impact me in any way because I can still collaborate with everybody I would have been collaborating with at the old space. But it's just kind of like enhancing that day-to-day routine where it's like, okay, like it'll be a smaller space, but I can actually help this person showcase each of his clients and I can help them be more efficient with their time. Like I know ways for them to take less time to post on social media.
Mm-hmm.
They have clients that I could probably help them with, little things like that. To make a long story short, essentially, I've been navigating this knowing that I have to be in a position of discomfort to move to the destination that I need to be. I can't just be comfortable because then I'll be stagnant and I won't get to where I want to be. Um, but in making those decisions, sometimes it's hard to know which one is the right direction, which one is the wrong. And I'm curious if you come across things like this when you're thinking about like where do you want to be in life when you're like 60 or 70 or 80, and what will it take to get there now based on like the very literal things like costs, expenses, logistics, stuff like that. Like how do you navigate those decisions, or when is a recent time when you've actually done something like that, made a shift to make things work?
I mean, like let's be totally transparent here. Online everything it looks like I got my shit together, but man, I'm a disaster, just like everybody else. Like any like back to Don Saladino, right? One of the most successful guys in the industry. I love. He was up on one of these things, and he was like, People talk about a 5 year plan. He's like, it's bullshit. You have no idea what's going to happen in 5 years. He's like, I don't even bother with that anymore. And there's something that comes with age is like, you ask like how I see myself. So this is really interesting because I'm about, I was when I was lifting primarily, I was lifting multiple days a week, and during COVID I couldn't do jujitsu, so I got and I really prioritized getting big, right? So I was about 215, which for me is huge. When I got married, I was 143 pounds. When I got out of this like rehab that I kind of started lifting, I was 33. I was maybe 100, maybe 150 pounds, and I got up to about 215. Now I'm like 185. I've lost muscle for sure, but my focus is now like jujitsu, striking. I'm also coaching some jujitsu. It's much more like cardio based, like just kind of health. And it's also this weird thing of like I'm a musician by trade. Like that's what I went to college for. I still play. You can, if you're watching on video, you can see all the guitars behind me. That's my like being. Like music is my connection to the unknown, basically. So fashion was always a big thing for me. Also, I was a hairdresser for a decade in New York City. Like I did like celebrity and supermodels, and I did a lot in fashion. So I've always really been into clothes. Now, when I got big, I started having to dress like a meat because there's nothing worse to me than like stuffing myself into a large T-shirt and looking like a stuffed sausage like walking around as I've lost weight now I can kind of start wearing the clothes and it's funny because we talk about time and how do I dress now? It's like now I wear my cowboy boots, my jeans, T-shirt or like a button-up shirt. And I think about like when people say like what do you want to look like when you're like 75 and like literally what I want to look like I always think about like how I want to dress and it's like I just like kind of like an old like hippie country dude like like I always think about like a Sam Elliott or a Robert Duvall like one of those kind of guys like and so I literally think of like the vision of how I want to look and how I want to portray that and I want to be playing music and I want to like I always want to do what I do. Like even if I only have like I'll never retire. Like that's like one of those things is like what would you do? I was like I'll never retire. Even if I only have 5 clients because there's nothing that brings me more joy than working with people in their capacity to try and make their lives better. And so I look at it as like I want to be this like kind of hippie. My wife is like kind of the same thing. She's an artist. She's a jewelry designer by trade. Like we're both really into fashion things. When I moved down here to South Carolina, I live in Charleston now from New York. I went, my mortgage on my house here is half what my rent was there. So how do I think about like monetarily? Where do I want to be in years? One of the things that I have to do is because I very much can freak out over money. Like I have this very weird relationship with money. I've seen it just like kind of destroy like a big part of my family and like it's just this weird relationship. So I get freaked out about it and I'm like, oh, I need to have however many millions in saving in investments in order to retire because that's what the internet says. And once again my therapist said what is the bare minimum that you need to like make each month to live? When I thought about that, I was like, it's not that much. It's not that much at all. And the funny thing is that I have, I'm financially very comfortable now. And I went through like a year where I had way more money anxiety than I did when I went bankrupt. And, we had a bankruptcy, we had a business we put together that like literally we had borrowed a very significant amount of money from the bank on the day that the stock market crashed in 2008. And the business went under. We lost like insane amount of money. Went bankrupt. And when I was a kid, broke. I was always pretty happy. I mean, I was, there was a lot like anyone. Life is tough, but I was content. And then all of a sudden, I get money anxiety, and it's that human beings naturally are more afraid of losing things than they are of trying to gain them. So the way I look at it now is, I need enough to survive. Everything else is gravy. Do I want I don't have kids, so I'm not super concerned. I don't need to pass anything down. I just need enough to live. And everything else is gravy. So yes, travel, we talk about travel. That's very important to me. Hopefully I'll get to Amsterdam, in the fall. And then we're going to, probably go down to, maybe we're gonna go visit our friend in France, and then maybe go to Morocco for a bit. We want to go. We want to do a big trip to Asia, and so I want to go like Vietnam, Cambodia. So like for me, it's like I save for those things. The Asia trip, like we've been cranking our Amexes for the last 5 years because I am not flying coach for that long. That I never pay for anything for like flights. Like I actually, we talk about like comfort and discomfort. One of the things I started doing because I traveled so much last year for conferences and things is I stopped upgrading my tickets at all. I'll only buy the cheapest one, and I do that primarily to reduce the anxiety. Because if I think to myself, you got the cheap ticket, you don't have the right to have overhead space. You don't have all these things, so you can't be disappointed. And yet, if you do the thing where you pay upgrade and you get in, you get all like waiting in line, you're pissed off because people are putting too much stuff to overhead, whatever it is, that's gone now. Now, if I'm going to be on the plane for like 20 hours or whatever, I'm doing first class, and like it's too much. But like, so yeah, that's the things I think about. And again, that comes down to relationships, and where do you choose to spend your time, spend your money? I would say I spend more money on coaching than anything else. Like, the different like groups I'm in, the coaches that I have, the courses I take, the travel for seminars, right? Like all of those things, education is where I spend most of my money. Does that have a quote unquote return on investment? I don't know, but I don't care because for me, I would rather learn something than earn a dollar. Like it's like what I can take into my brain is way more important to me than what I can put into my bank account. And that's not a values thing. Like it's like for other people, they value like other people are really into business. They're really into money. Nothing bores me more than business. It's important, obviously, for me to run a business, but like when people start talking about like, hey, I'm like, I don't care. Like it's just not into me. It's just not. It's just the most boring thing in the world to me. And when I hear people who are really good at it and really talk about it, I'm like, that's cool. Like you think of it on another level. It's just I'm never going to get there. And so yeah. So like, what do I spend my time and my focus and my space? It's really on on right now. I don't like. I guess I save. I put things in invest, but I don't really think about like what I want to do. I mean, I do think about like where I would like to live, and we do really want to move to Europe at least for like 3 to 5 years to be able to travel. Like I'm looking Portugal. I really like Barcelona because it's beach, it's warm, but Portugal is kind of the easiest for Americans to move to. So yeah, so when you ask where do I see myself, I mean, probably living in a little town in Portugal, maybe have a summer place up in Amsterdam where we could go there because I won't be there in the winter because it's, again, dark and cold and rainy. But yeah, that's kind of the dream. But if I never did that and I stayed right here in this house in Charleston, like I fucking love it. Like I love, like I thought we were gonna come down here. I'd be here for like 6 months and go right back to New York and sell and rent this out as an Airbnb. But man, I got down here and it's like, it's awesome. So like if I stay the rest of my life in this very house, I'd be totally happy doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
I like it. Some things that stand out with your routine, and we've talked about this before, is how like regimented that you are. Like when you're at conferences, you're socializing, but when you're at home, it's like this, go to bed.
Yeah.
And so, how do you get to that level of comfort when you're out of your home setting? Like, let's say you go to Europe, totally different time zone, totally different environment. How do you replicate that sort of like structure, or do you just throw it all out the window and take it hour by hour?
I pretty much throw it out the window for the most part. I mean, like the problem is when I travel, I don't sleep. It's funny because if anyone follows my social media, like one of the things I make fun of a lot is the whole like discipline thing. Like, all these guys. If anyone looks at my life from the outside, they're like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" Like my like I can look over here at my calendar and it's like I have lunch scheduled. I have like the time I get up scheduled. Like like my day is very routine. But we talk about time, and what I look at is, so what I talk to people about is like make rituals, not rules. And so I look at my day as a set of rituals. And I have my morning rituals. And, people make fun of this whole morning routine thing, but I think everyone should have a morning routine, not for some like grind culture bullshit, but what rituals do is they mark the passage of time and they help us to understand time. And that could be long term, right? Like, why do we have birthdays? It helps the passage of time. Why do we have, New Year's Eve? Why do we have celebrations around the solstice or the equinox? Like, because that's the passage of time. And without these traditions, we lose that. And we've lost so many rituals and traditions in our world that we now have to relearn them. And we have to relearn them. And so much of like my work is like taking the science of tradition is what I like to look at. Is like, why do I study polyvagal theory, which is the concept that like regulating our nervous systems will help everything else. It's because we've lost all of the tools that we naturally had to do these things because of our industrialized society, because of the way capitalism. Don't get me on that. So why do I have this very regimented day? It's simply to understand how the day goes. So in my morning, I have certain rituals, and there's an intention there. It's like usually it's I get up at 5:15, I go to jiu-jitsu for 6 o'clock class. But if I don't do that, then I want to move. So if I'm traveling, right, like I might just stretch and like I might get up, and it doesn't have to be some intense workout. I might just do a little like movement stuff in my room, just getting some mobility in. Obviously, there's things like creative, like I have to do some kind of creative outlet at some point in the day. So I don't have my guitars with me when I travel, so that might just be, sitting down and writing. I write constantly. I have, I like to read some kind of quote unquote devotional. I'm not religious at all, agnostic at best, but like right now I have this book by Richard Rohr, who's a Catholic priest. And like all these things are like about Jesus and about like all these things. And that's not my thing, but there's something there in all of those things. And so I like to read something like that in the morning to get me started. And then I have my pre-work rituals, which is like getting myself ready for the day, post-work, because that shuts the day down and allows me to be present with my wife. And then I have pre-bed rituals, which kind of like put a close on the day, help me to recap, reframe, reflect, and then I don't sit there lying awake thinking about all this shit that I have to do. So when I'm on the road, I think, how can I mimic the intention there? And it's that simple. It's like, what am I doing to start my morning? What am I doing? The hard thing is like there's not a lot of separation. It's like I run back to my room. Maybe I call my wife and say hi, and then I maybe write some things down for the day, and then it's like, okay, now we're going out to hang out, and then that's my hangout time, and then close the night off with my normal routine of just like getting ready for bed, and maybe I'll journal a little bit. I've gotten back into journaling. Because I think it's actually a pretty important way for me to close my day out. But yeah, so that's it. I just think about the intention of what I normally do, and I don't make it too strict.
Hmm. I like it. I mean, when I travel, a big focus for me is just like walking. I walk
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, wherever possible. Somebody might think, wouldn't it be more practical to rent a car? I'm like, if I rent a car, I'm not going to walk. So I'm just not going to rent a car, and then I'm going to walk.
Yeah,
Um,
plus like that's a cool if you're in a city, like that's the coolest way. That's why I love Europe is I just
yeah.
walk around. I don't get a map, I don't get my Google. I just walk around and wander and get lost and then like find cool shit. It's the best.
I think the funniest thing that I did was a few years ago, I was in New York for a conference, and I walked from Manhattan to LaGuardia Airport. And I did like this poll in my Instagram stories, and I was like, "Do you think I'm gonna do it?" And then a whole bunch of people were like, "Nah." And then Dean was in there, and he was like, "Yes." And I was like, "Good." So yeah, it
How?
was one hell of a walk.
How? Where the fuck did you walk?
I just uh, I just kind of followed Google Maps. I took a ferry. It took 5 hours or something. I just walked.
That's insane. I mean, I've never even heard of anyone doing that. I mean, I have a buddy who ran an ultra marathon in New York, and he didn't even do that.
Yeah,
Good
for me, it was
lord.
funny because it was like, I'm just gonna do it so that I can look somebody straight in the face and say, I've done it. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah, that's insanity. Yeah, I didn't even know that was possible. Like I didn't even
I
know there was a
figured it out.
walking route.
Just required just required a ferry.
Yeah.
And I did. I did similar things in Toronto as well. I went there and I caught up with Lee Boyce while I was there. It was just like I wanted to just go somewhere, just go somewhere. And I contacted a bunch of the Fit Pros that lived there, and the one that actually responded to me was Lee. And so we caught up and we did a podcast interview. And I was staying in Mississauga, so I did like public transit and walking to get everywhere, and probably did like 25,000 to 30,000 steps a day. But I actually got to know the area so much better. And so that's kind of like the thing that I do for grounding, or at least for like acclimating myself to the new space and kind of getting back to my own rituals. But you spoke on journaling, which I think is really important because I've been recently challenged to actually like journal more properly because I'm a very reflective person. I write things down, but then I delete them. And somebody that I talk to on a regular basis, they're like, why don't you save it? Why don't you put it in a Google Doc or put it into a little journal or something like that? And I was like, you are right. And I need to do that because it'd be good for me. So for yourself, when you got back into it, what caused you to go back into it and what was the gap when you had strayed away from it?
Well, I write all day long. I talk all day long. I spend hours a day. Like, my next kind of project is, it'll be like a YouTube series, and I don't know if I'm going to tie it into health and fitness at all, but I have a lot of conceptual ideas on personal philosophies and questioning philosophies that exist. And a big thing that I like to do is question the status quo. And question my own biases. So like I always like think about things from these weird lens. But I also am okay with deleting stuff. I think the very Zen idea of the impermanence of everything is great. And like I write everything down. I mean, I always do this trick. This is like whenever this is just on the top of my desk. This is 4 notebooks. I have boxes in my attic filled with notebooks filled with writings from years. I mean, I write. I always have journals. But I don't necessarily journal per se. And so, like you get all the advice. And so I tried to do like the gratitude journaling, which is awesome for about 5 days. And then it just turns into like, I'm grateful for my lamp. Like, I don't fucking know. And so I think it kind of gets a little useless. I'm sure that people will tell me I'm just doing it wrong, whatever. So I just started doing it because I feel like, because I tell clients to journal and I'm like, okay, well, shouldn't I probably do this as well? So I thought about why do I want to journal? And really it's because, a lot of times I'll lay in bed and I'll just be like running through like whatever hamster wheel crazy shit's going through my brain that night. And so like I can just put this down. And my journaling, it's funny because I'm very serious about my writing. I write every day. I love words. I love reading. So I want to write well. My journaling is just about like, yeah, today was a good day. Da, da, da. But what I found, my own personal kind of bend on it, and something I've been talking to clients about, if they're interested to kind of participate to do it themselves, is when I go through my day, I go through everything, but I have to write down one thing I'm proud of myself for, and that has been the most important piece of it. Because I think we naturally just talk about all the things I'm doing. Oh, what could you do better? And everything is about this constant push for productivity. I think it's probably one of the biggest issues we have as humans is, it's that kind of 1984 versus Brave New World. Like, we don't need the higher ups to tell us what to do because they've convinced us to become our own authoritarians. Like, you have to have a brand and you have to do this and you have to, like, you'll work yourself to death. No one even has to tell you to do it. And so rather than that idea of like, what did I get done or why didn't I get this done? It's instead of like, what are you proud of yourself for today? And it could be something as stupid as like, I'm proud of myself for like doing the dishes. And I often have great pride in something that is like just normal adult behavior because, I remember one day I was doing the dishes and when I was younger, I had gotten an assault charge and I was at that point, I was facing 25 years in prison. And I ended up getting off with 5 years of probation and 8 years suspended sentence and didn't do any serious time. But I was like, there was a very 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 close possibility that right now I would not be standing here and being able to do dishes. And so there's things like that of like, what did you do today that you're proud of, and have that sense of pride and start to recognize that like you're doing things that are important, and it doesn't have to be important in the greater world. Like that little thing of like doing the dishes could be a very important part of your life. And so I think doing that has been really helpful, and that's helped me to stick with it. Because again, it's hard to start new things, and even I'm not super consistent. Like I'm not like every day, but I don't beat myself up over it if I don't do it. Because I just forget. Because it's like, oh, my wife and I watched a show, and it's like getting ready for bed. And I'm like, oh shit, this is a new thing that I forgot to do. But if it's a simple thing, if I just run in real quick and be like, what am I proud of myself for? Boom, just write that down. Cool, I'm good. So yeah, that's been the journey, and the reason behind that is because that's become really important to me.
So when you're pulling ideas of what you are proud of yourself for within that day, do you feel like it's something that you can only say to yourself? Do you feel like it's something that you can kind of share with like
Oh
a
yeah.
close loved one?
Oh, I'll tell anyone. One of the things that most people know about me is I'm an open book. Like, I don't really have many secrets. Like, I don't,
Hmm.
like, it's like, um, like everyone, people are so ashamed or so embarrassed or so afraid of things. Um, but in reality, it's so silly. It's like, I think in AA or whatever they would say, like, people be like, oh, I'm ashamed of this thing. And it's like, if there's a name for it, that means someone else has done it before. It's fine.
Hmm.
So when I say like I'm proud of myself for just like getting out of my comfort, like for you're proud of yourself for getting out of your comfort zone to go to this new gym because you know that it that's a risk, but taking risks is also something to be proud of. And so it's like those kind of little things, like it might not seem like a big deal, but they are. They are. I think we make big deals out of the things that are small, and we kind of minimize the things that are big deals.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the reason why I ask is like sometimes I'll talk to people and I can hear them being very critical of themselves. And usually this is like outside of the fitness industry, just like little chit chats that I'll have with people in my life. And then I'll be able to like kind of pick out something that I really like about them and like, no, no, I can't believe it. And so for them, if they ever had to write it down, I don't feel that it would be easy for them to necessarily write it down and make it known, but I think it'd be very helpful for them to write it down and kind of make it
Sure.
known, even if it was just like, even if they're talking to their dog or something or their cat, because then that makes it a lot easier to own it, and it's kind of something where like I have spent so much of my fitness career just kind of like trying to sort of like be good enough, trying to get better, trying
Hmm.
to improve that I never stopped and realized like how much I had actually accomplished in the time. Like as I reflect from different contracting roles where I kind of stepped away in a way that was like kind and amicable, I didn't realize like how many experiences that I had gained, how many connections that I had had. Like I've done so many like thousands of projects, hundreds of podcast episodes, been on calls with definitely hundreds of coaches and stuff like that. And I didn't take that for what it was worth. And so for me to go through an exercise and then to kind of like actually own it and where I could like talk to a few people about it would be powerful. So I'm hoping that when people listen to this episode, they kind of do the same. That not only do they do the journaling, but they at least feel comfortable like talking externally about it. And again, it could just be with your dog or your cat, but just something in a way where you actually have to own what you've done, why you're proud of it, and why it means something so that it can kind of carry you into that next day.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, people are also self-critical, and that's a protective part of us, right? That's there to like kind of prevent, but we have to come to terms with that too, and be like, okay, like I hear that voice. It's just a thought. Like that's one of the things people get confused. They think their thoughts are them, right? Your thoughts are not you. They're just things that pop in your head. Like I tell people all the time. I'll be driving in traffic, and the thought will come into my head, be like, I could just run that person over that's walking the street. That doesn't mean I'm like a psychopathic murderer, right? Like it's like no, it's just a thought. I don't do it. But yet when you think, well, you're not good enough for this thing, you're like that. All of a sudden you embody that, and you're like, that's the truth. That's it's like no, no, it's just this shit floating through your head. Let it go.
Yeah, it's crazy how powerful our thoughts are. Like if I went into a jujitsu competition, I was like, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose. And if I can at least visualize myself with like at least visualizing the energy that I might have if something went well. I can't predict the future, but I can imagine something going well. That'll give me a better chance. And I haven't competed in like a little bit. I think the last time was like last October or something. I went to Saskatchewan, the next province over. It was a
Hmm.
5 hour drive. And it was humbling enough that I wanted to kind of like work on things, and then I wasn't able to go to jujitsu as much. But then that just kind of like outlines how we can't predict the future. Nothing has to be perfect. We can kind of go through different seasons of life to focus on different things. I was able to focus more on connections. Didn't progress my jujitsu as much, but I was able to see more people, and that means a lot to me. So that's all that matters. Um, the last question I'm going to give you, and I've been kind of like bridging from like when I first started the podcast to now. And when I first started the podcast back in like 2018 or so, I would ask people if they were to give somebody a piece of advice on how to live their life to the fullest in the most authentic way, which kind of sounds kind of cliche now. But if they were to give that piece of advice, what would it be?
Hmm. It's gonna sound so fucking corny, but just love.
Yeah.
Like honestly, just be open, be vulnerable. Try your best to live non-judgmentally, both of yourself and of others, and just recognize that like all the bullshit, all the stuff that we are fighting over and we hate it's all horseshit. You're taking on someone else's views of who you should be, and those people that we have all of these disagreements with and these things, sit in a room and talk to them. And when you see their, their heart, who they are, their politics, their religion, the things they wear, none of that shit matters, right? You will know someone's intentions and if they're a good person, um, and just try to open up. And I guarantee you, this world will look much more beautiful, and your life will look much more content.
I really like that because it correlates with why I actually changed the name of the show. I changed it to Chasing Common Ground
Hmm.
because that just there's going to be a different crowd that'll be around when I was instructing spin classes than
Hmm.
the crowd that I'm around when I'm going to jujitsu. And then even within jujitsu, I could go to a place like on the west side of the city and I could go to a place on the east side of the city and it's going to be a different kind of demographic of people, but we're all going to have like the common ground of the mats and the technique and the sort of that flow state that we seek to achieve and the challenges and the adversity and what it's like to go through different injuries and the self-doubt, all that stuff. And like to focus on that makes life better than to be hyper focused on what we could possibly come up with to argue about, which these arguments, they don't matter because
Well,
life just goes
and
by.
that's why jujitsu is awesome. Is because everyone there is fucking insane. So like my friends, like this group of friends I have at this jujitsu school are like, I mean, we are so tight. We go. I mean, I don't have a real job. I don't have to get up at 5:15 in the morning, but I go because of the relationships. I go there because of these guys, and we disagree fundamentally on most politics. I'm a New York musician, anti-capitalist, like, and most of my friends are like MAGA Trump guys, and I love them dearly. And we still fight about shit, but it's okay because that's the shit that doesn't matter because we know what's really important is the connection we have, and it's like, and that's it. Like that's it. But no one can get past this stuff where it's like someone told you you're not supposed to like this person because of X, Y, Z, and it's like we you don't have control over that stuff. Everyone thinks they have all this control. You were born in a place to a certain set of people, around a certain set of people, and had the education you had. That's really what dictates most of it. Like the inner part, the soul, doesn't care about that.
Yep, absolutely. And I think with that, I will draw the formal interview to a close. So thank you so much, Jeb, for
Thanks,
joining
buddy.
me for the show today.
It's good seeing you.